Hello, and welcome back to the next video in the Journal Your Story video series. And today's word prompt is just around the corner. And so, this could go for anything. And my original idea was to kind of go with the idea of looking somewhere in my house and taking a photo like around the corner and then talking about that particular room. Or, I actually thought about my art studio or my art room. And so, but as I was out and about this weekend, I noticed the two stores that I went into already has all their Valentines out. So I thought, oh wow, Valentine's is just around the corner. And I thought, oh, cool. That'll be a great uh, prompt to go with on in my journal. And what I really thought was going to be a win-win situation on this was that I was going to be able to pull out all my Valentine ephemera, which is something I've been wanting to do. I first wanted to get all my Christmas up, which I have not done that. I still have it in my little cart, but I am going to get that put away and then, of course, have all my Valentines out, hopefully by the end of the week. So, as you can see in the video, right now I'm using watercolor and watercolor markers, the mermaid markers from Jane Davenport, and the other ones that also are very, very similar is by Vicki Boutin. Now, Vicki Boutin's watercolor markers, they don't really seem to at least get on my hands like Jane Davenport's. I love them both. I love the colors. In this video, I actually feel like that pink is a little bit more pigmented than what I had originally planned on it, because I had really wanted to have space behind it to write on. But you'll see that it all ends up working out. And I do. I love it. And I found this trick about diluting those pigmented watercolor markers because I do love them and they've lasted me quite a while. But I learned from a journal with Dolly, and I thought, well, that's a great idea, and they actually can go pretty further that way as well. Um, so now I'm just kind of putting together some ephemera. Over the weekend, I went through a lot of my magazines, my Daphne Diary that have been stacking up because I love her magazine. I probably have several years of it because I love the images and I love flipping through it, but I've decided I'm going to be decluttering my space and actually using what I have. And so instead of just having stacks of magazines, I'm actually going to be using what's in the magazines because I really like seeing that used in your journals as well. So these are the bins that I have at the top of my workspace, and like this particular bin is full of cardstock. A lot of these I've used in my my journals, my junk journals for my traveler's notebooks, and so they're kind of bent to go into those books. But I do know I have a Cinderella book torn up, a little golden book, so I'm looking for an image of the prince and the princess because I thought that would be perfect for Valentine's. And so I'm just kind of flipping through here to see if I can find it. But I'm also picking out papers, like I know this paper it's a Valentine paper and has like Happy Valentine's Day and love and things like that on it. So I thought, oh, I'll use that as well. And bingo, I found it. Um, so I'm going to be using that as part of my paper as well. Now, if the reason I was looking for all these papers is because I am going to be making hearts and using the paper to cut out wonky little hearts for the page because I'm going to be layering them up. So as with hearts and actually Halloween, I always say my hearts and pumpkins are the same that I like. I like really tall, wonky pumpkins, and I like really tall hearts. So I'm just kind of freehanding cutting these. I could have used a punch too. That would have worked as well. I don't have a tall um, heart though punch, so these work just perfectly fine. In fact, I kind of like them being not so perfect. So I'm just kind of picking out some of those, and this one, like I said, has the words on it, so I definitely wanted to kind of use um, some of that paper because it just matches perfectly with the Valentines. Um, so yeah, so we're just gonna do that. And then also, I'm gonna be working with some vellum, which I don't typically add a lot of vellum to my pages. So you'll kind of see how I'm gonna be working with that as well. Now, I'm kind of doing the fussy cutting on the prince and the princess, but I don't cut right by, for one, it's very tedious to cut exactly the shape, but also um, I kind of like having a little bit of edge around them. And that way it's easier to glue. And some of these little golden book pages are real fragile. And so I just didn't want, and this particular book was as well. And so a lot of times if I'm kind of rough with the glue stick, I didn't want to rip a nose off or anything like that. So, um, but I've actually learned that over time, I kind of like having an edge on. I used to want it right up next to the image, um, as you can see a lot with my stickers, but I kind of like having that little bit of edge on there as well. So looking at what I have in front of me, that floral that I have in my hand that I just laid down, that actually came out of one of the Daphne's Diary journals. I mean, like I said, her books are very, very beautiful. They are very heavy paper, and so definitely works great in journaling. Sometimes magazines can be real flimsy, but not hers, not at all. But I thought, you know what? They're just sitting here stacked up by, that I look at periodically, but why don't I go ahead and make use of it, and it frees up space in my room. And that's really what I'm going for this year is declutter, um, using what I have, those kind of things. So as you can see, I'm kind of working with that vellum. I wanted to do I love that look of, when you put it on top of images. So I wanted to um, really use that in here. And really and truly, it's not that I went out to say I'm going to be using vellum today. It was in the stack of papers I was looking through. And so I was like, oh, well, let me try to work this into my project. Um, but yeah, so the watercolor's dry. I have to say, drinking my coffee, I have to say the watercolor dries really, really quickly on these pages. And they are a little crinkly. I'm okay with that. I mentioned earlier, I kind of like that crinkled feel to pages. Um, so that doesn't bother me whatsoever. But I am adding a little bit of trim on these. Two reasons. One, it definitely does secure those pages together because like I said, I have 2 to 3 pages depending on, um, I think I did periodically 3, sometimes I did 2. When I was going through them last night, I noticed I had one that didn't, was just kind of sitting out there, so I don't know where that came from. I was watching TV at the time I was gluing all these down, so um, it could have just slipped by, and I'm okay with that. But I noticed that on some of the pages I've already done that the pages started coming across, and I think it's because I didn't use this extreme glue. I used the purple disappearing Elmer's glue, and I've had issues with it before. It just doesn't stick for me. I mean, maybe it works. I don't know. It just is. I like the extreme, even though this one, look what it happens. I don't know why it just decided to clump out really bad, but um, I bought these in bulk off of Amazon because I've used them for years, and so the next book I do glue the pages together, I will definitely be using this Elmer's glue again. It just works better. So what I'm doing with this vellum is, first of all, I'm wiping those big clumps of glue off, and I know what a waste, right? But I do come back and use some of it, so I don't feel as bad. But I'm making a little pocket, so I'm just gluing on 3 sides of that vellum and leaving the top open because what I wanted to do and what I do is basically keeping that open. I wanted to have some of these hearts like in, some of them in and some of them sticking out so that you do see that it's kind of this sheer, I don't want to say sheer, but it's, it has that look to it where it's not opaque, but you can still see the image underneath it, which is almost gives it like a frosty look. And so, but you'll see what I do in just a minute. That really makes it special. But so yeah, so then I'm just kind of playing around with the images and trying to figure out where I'm going to be sticking everything. like I said, sometimes I do like to get the bigger pieces down, and then I can kind of play around with different things. So using this little polka dotted cardstock shape here, I mean card journal card, um, it kind of adds, it breaks up that background a little bit and places to add some hearts and kind of create like a little pocket to put the put the hearts in. And then I'm like, oh yeah, and then I can use the front of this as a pocket to put the just around the corner word prompt, and um, can't forget my prince and princess, my being a hopeless romantic that I am. And you know, Valentine's Day used to not be one of my favorite holidays. I liked it as a kid. I loved it as a kid. But then in my 20s, there's just these expectations. I think they probably have gotten better, or maybe I just have changed. But I can still remember I literally broke up with my boyfriend over Valentine's, and because all the ladies in the office, I know this sounds so superficial, but they were getting flowers, and I got absolutely nothing, not a card, not anything. And so it just hurt my feelings so bad. And I can still remember I was just, oh, that was it. It's done. You don't care about me because you didn't get me anything for Valentine's. Um, Needless to say, we didn't stay together anyway, but that was so funny that was definitely so traumatic for me. And um, anyway, now I'm okay either way. So I'm a grown up now. But um, what me and my daughter like to do for Valentine's, and this is typically what I usually get, and I always like getting cards and things like that, but we love to get one of those big gigantic box of chocolates and like go through and like eat a bite out of each one, and even my husband does it too. And but that's why one of our favorite things on Legally Blonde is when she's sitting there and she's eating the box of chocolates, and liar, she throws. So we always do that. It's just, it's tradition. But what I like about Valentine's is the fact that it is hearts and pinks, and it's a day for love. So um, whether you give it or you get it, it's doesn't, you know, it doesn't mean that someone doesn't love you. It's just, I could go on and on about it. But anyway, that was just some of my memories of Valentine's in my older years. But here I noticed that I wanted to have this over a little bit because I was trying to make sure you could see the hearts beyond the prince and the princess, and my prince was getting cut off by his hand over there was getting cut in the seam of the book. So but I didn't want to cover up all those hearts because that was the point of having them, is so I could see them. So yeah, so that's kind of what that was about. I'm just glad it didn't dry all the way, so I had to move it, because if not, it would have been like, oh well, you're not just going to see the hearts. So, so yeah, so I'm just kind of adding, and what I'm doing with that vellum is I'm adding glue to the top of the images of like the hearts and like that journaling card, because that way it's sealing in those. I was talking over it, but I added sparkle stars inside that vellum to pocket. And of course, you have to have stars and sparkle for the prince and princess. And so, so yeah, so it just kind of adds like a little shaker card type pocket inside the journal. And I didn't put overly, so you still are going to not have as much bulk, but it just kind of adds a little something special. Now I'm going to use up that old glue, or that glue that kind of just clumped up off of my glue stick, and I'm just sealing in the top part of that vellum that didn't have any hearts, flowers, any hearts or journaling card. That way you just kind of seal that in, and you don't have to worry about those little sparkle stars coming out of the pocket. So, oh, drinking a cup of coffee, looking at it, thinking about it. Yep, they're going to go right there. So, yeah, so we're just going to add glue to the back side of the prince and princess and get them down on the paper. And basically, I'm just kind of coming in here and I'm going to just start looking at to see what else I want to add. I'm I'm so I don't like any kind of spaces to be left, even though I did want to keep um, a little bit of that pink background because I did cover quite a bit of it up. So yeah, so here I am just adding the word prompt to the envelope, just adding that just around the corner. And of course that Valentine word is I cut out of my one of those Daffrine diaries that I was cutting up last night. So that works out perfect. And then, oh yeah, so adding few more stars um, to, not stars. Why do I keep saying those hearts are stars? I got stars on the brain, but I'm just going to be adding a little bit of cardstock hearts here and there, and then I come back in. I um, I bought these foam glitter hearts from, I believe they were the dollar store and um, Dollar Tree, and so I've used these last year, and I absolutely love them. For one, they're very sticky, they're sturdy, and they really do stay. And especially when you're layering up things, they don't. Sometimes stickers, if they're not sticky enough, they have a tendency um, to come off. But I've never had any issues with foam stickers, and I used to not like them at all, and I'm still kind of iffy on some of them, but I don't know why. I just didn't really like them, and so but these glitter ones are perfect, and I've used them several years in a row now on different different projects that I have going on, mostly in my journal and things like that. So yeah, so we're going to add some. I eventually start adding. Oh, I see what I'm doing. Okay, yeah. So I still want to add some things to kind of give it a little bit of dimension and a little bit of different type of material, which is some texture, those kind of things. So I knew I had some hearts. This is my bits and bobs box that I have different kind of things in there. A lot of like glitter and sequined hearts and stars and unicorns and things like that. So I'm using this binding, this crinkled binding ribbon. I love this stuff to add to the page because it just to me this just looks kind of very girly and very feminine or feminine girly and soft and just kind of romantic in itself. And so I just kind of wanted to add that where it sticks out on the page. So I'm using my Tim Holtz stapler to secure that in place. And then this heart here is actually is on felt, and so it's real sturdy. And so I thought that would be a nice little piece of texture as well to kind of have hanging off on the edge there. So you kind of have all the different elements on the page. Um, I think I'm just, oh yeah, there we go. We're going to put the washi at the top. I knew I had washi at the top because there was like, when I did the watercolor, it just kind of seemed like it was blotchy and it didn't kind of, it wasn't very smooth. And so I thought that adding the washi at the top just kind of sealed it in and made it look a whole lot better. Um, and I needed to add more sparkle to my page. So I thought I ended up kind of putting these little dots in here. This is some glitter glue that I actually got in my stocking. But then I started thinking, gosh, this is gonna, as thick as I put those little dots on, it's gonna take forever to dry. And so I end up just kind of making that Valentine word sparkle. And so I just kind of added it a little bit more. And that way I didn't have to worry about how long it was going to take to dry. Because in a minute I'm going to show you on the left-hand page here is actually my documentation from January the 2nd. So I did want to have, even though I'm putting this page together here, I did want to be able to have a space to, I didn't want to wait, several hours before I could start working on the other page, and I didn't want to smear it with my arm and those kind of things. So yeah, so I'm just finishing the page off with some little hearts. I have my little glitter pen and just adding some hearts here and there that I come back and use ink to emphasize them.
All right, you guys, so thanks for joining me in doing this page with me. And then this is the other page that was scheduled to go for Saturday the 2nd, January 2nd. So this was part of my daily journal, my creative journal. And anyway, I hope you guys are inspired to document just around the corner. All right, we'll see you in the next video.